Well, good morning. It's 11:03. We thought we would get started here this morning. My name is Mark McGill. I'm the Director of Member Relations for the South Bend Regional Chamber, and welcome to our Solutions for Success today. And to steal the line from Steve Harvey, we got a good one for you today. We have Thriving Under Pressure Strategies for Leaders to Foster a Growth Mindset. And we're going to meet with and talk with Cherri Kulp. I've known her as Cherri Pete for a long time. We'll talk to Cherri here in just a second. Before we go any further, I want to introduce to you Evan Stark. We cannot do these great programs here at the Chamber without just amazing partners. And when I think of terrific partners, I think of SYM Financial and Evan Stark. They are huge supporters of the Chamber. They are involved in the golf outing, many events throughout the year, and they're the ones that bring you these solutions for success. So, Evan, good morning. Tell us a bit about you.
Good morning, Mark. Happy to be here. I love opportunities like this to hear from businesses in our community. I listened to the podcast with Cherri, and I'm excited to hear her share more about what she does for our community and for businesses. SYM Financial Advisors is a top 100 independent advisory firm in the country that's based right here in our region. We have 5 offices throughout the Midwest. We're about to add a sixth in Tennessee. Exciting stuff happening. We're growing. We've been in business for 50 plus years. We manage over $4 billion on a discretionary basis and provide comprehensive financial planning services to our clients. So basically, if a question has something to do with estate, taxes, insurance, investments, something like that, we've got somebody on our bench that can help you. And we love helping our community. So we're glad to be here. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Evan. Again, thanks for your support of the Chamber. We really do cherish our relationship with you. A couple of housekeeping things before we get to Cherri next Tuesday. We have our State of Economy breakfast. Always a great morning. It's going to be held at the Morris Park Country Club. We have a terrific panel for you for the State of Economy breakfast. Vanessa Green, she's the president and CEO of the Indiana Chamber. She'll be in town on the panel. Also, Jim Cannon, the president and CEO of AM General. They've got a lot of things going on. He'll tell us about that. And Rich Carlton, the president of Analytics, also on the panel, as well as Jeff Ray, our president and CEO, and Allison Herzig, who is the director of economic development for the Chamber. She will be there as well, and they're going to give you a nice little state of the economy preview. So that's going to be next Tuesday at the Morris Park Country Club. Starts at 7:45 in the morning, goes till 9. A terrific morning. I invite you to come, and you can find out more information on our website for that. December 3rd, networking at lunch from 11:30 until 1. Our guest is Kurt Janowski. Kurt, of course, is the owner of Navarre Hospitality Group with amazing restaurants throughout the area, including the Cascade, the top of the line steakhouse that is in the new building right on the river, and that's where we're going to hold the event is at the Cascade. So I'm very excited to see the new space and talk to Kurt and hear about him and all the great things happening at Navarre Hospitality Group and how they're surviving in this economy because the restaurant business is tough. And then December 6th, our legislative preview at the History Museum. It's going to be noon till 1. We're going to preview the general session of the 2025 Indiana General Assembly. All of our local legislators are going to be there. Just kind of a roundtable discussion, and it's really just great. And with the new administration coming into Washington, going to be a busy year down in Indianapolis, and they're going to preview what's going on. So all of those events and all of our events can be found on the website, sbrchamber.com. You can check it out and get signed up there. Questions throughout the program. We're going to have some time at the end for questions. If something pops up that Cherri's talking about and you want her to expand on, I'll keep an eye on the chat or the question and answers at the bottom. But again, we'll have some time at the end. So if something that Cherri mentions that piques your interest and you want to ask another more question, more information about it, go ahead and put your questions in the question and answer box, and I will monitor that and take care of that. And now, without further ado, Cherri Kulp Pete. Again, congratulations on the new last name. I've known her as Cherri Pete for a long time. I'm sure that a lot of people know Cherri. It'd be easier for me to not tell you what she's done than to tell you what she's done, because if I went through all of her accolades of all that she's accomplished, then we would not have time for the presentation. But Cherri's worked for the mayor's office under Mayor Pete. She received a key to the city from Mayor Pete. So if you ever get locked out of any house, I think that's how that works. I think the key to the city opens every single building and home in the city. So She's a Bachelor of Arts from IU, a Master of Science in Public Speaking from DePaul. She's worked for ADEX. She's got some chamber experience. Also, she was a guest on our recent Behind the Region podcast a couple of weeks ago. So we've got that uploaded now, so you can check that out. But without further ado, Cherri Kulp Pete. Hello, my friend.
Hello, hello, and thank you so much for that warm introduction. It's a pleasure being with you all this morning, and thank you again for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So I am going to talk about thriving under pressure, how to unlock success with growth mindset strategies. I want to acknowledge my blended learners out there, those who take in information through auditory and visual means. So I will read each bullet point, but I will expand further on what those bullet points are discussing. So today we're going to go over a few things that are going to expand upon growth mindset, why it's important, the benefits that it offers organizations and the leaders within it and its employees. So we'll talk about going from fixed to growth, understanding the two different mindsets, executive growth mindset strategies for organizational success, the benefits that come with leading within an organization with a growth mindset, and how to build a resilient leadership team through the growth mindset strategies, and transforming challenges into opportunities with that growth mindset in mind. So we will also talk about how to overcome some common barriers that rise up when you're going from fixed to growth mindset. And then, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on anything that I present to you today. I am a huge fan of quotes and I love words, and my background is in professional speaking, but also in professional spoken word. So you're going to hear some quotes throughout today's presentation, but I would like to start with this one. And it says, "If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm." It is an African proverb. The next one is, "The words that follow I am will follow you," by Rock Thomas. And I'm going to circle back with these quotes throughout this presentation, and you'll understand why I listed these quotes here. Mindset. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, mindset is a mental inclination, tendency, or habit. I've had the pleasure of diving deeper into what is a mindset. And with that, I was able to dive into Carol Dweck's work. She is the author of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And she has done some fantastic work understanding fixed mindset and growth mindset. So there are two different mindsets. One can have one or the other, and sometimes individuals have a blended of both mindsets. A fixed mindset it involves believing that one's abilities are static. Individuals with this mindset tend to avoid challenges, they give up easily, they're threatened by other success, and they view failures as a limit. Oftentimes, when they view their failure as a limit, they see it as not as "I have failed," but "I am a failure." And oftentimes, this mindset originates from fear of failure, fear of looking like they're not enough. And sometimes, according to Dr. Dweck, this mindset has been shaped through one's upbringing. She speaks about how back in the 80s and 90s, there was this wave of self-esteem building. And oftentimes, adults and parents would tell their children that they're rock stars and superstars and they're smart, they're talented, focusing on the outcomes and not so much on the process that got them there. And with that in mind, many individuals have grown up not wanting to challenge themselves because they're so focused on staying within a particular set of belief systems, so that way they can continue to stay this smart individual, this talented individual, and not push themselves to go further and to challenge new opportunities. There's other things that kind of help shape a fixed mindset. And in her work, she talks about stereotypes. Stereotypes that are given through society, such as "you are this, therefore you are not enough." And she talks about race, gender, ideology, political beliefs, and how those sometimes will box people in and make them feel like they can't go beyond what society has labeled them to be. But the good thing is that people can shift from having a fixed mindset to going into a growth mindset. And according to her, a growth mindset is the belief that abilities over time can be developed. there's a shift in perspective. You can view your challenges as opportunities, opportunities to grow, opportunities to learn new information. You're focused on mastering this subject, mastering this talent, and you're focused on the process, not the outcome. Failure is seen as a learning opportunity, and you seek new opportunities to grow, seek ways to be challenged and to be stretched in a way that's healthy. And this opportunity, well, excuse me, this mindset is often brought about in your upbringing. Sometimes individuals who grew up in a very challenging environment, who want to be outside of that, stretch themselves. They become more resourceful, more resilient. And they also have very strong emotional intelligence. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Again, as I mentioned, the good news is that the brain is malleable. You can go from fixed mindset to growth mindset. All you have to do is change your habits. And the beautiful thing about growth mindset is how you look at things. Wayne Dyer says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And that is the crux of having a growth mindset. It's all about perspective. And here is a diagram that Dr. DeWitt put together that kind of outlines the two different mindsets. As you can see to the left, it's the fixed mindset. Intelligence is static. It is what it is. You're not going to push yourself to learn, to grow, because you know that I am a master at math, so I'm not going to learn new things. I'm a master at cooking, so I'm not going to learn anything else because people know me as a good cook. So I'm not going to learn a different style of cooking because I don't want to step outside the box and disappoint myself or disappoint others. They tend to give up easy, again, as I mentioned before, when challenged with something new because they don't want to feel disappointment or disappoint others. And as you can see in the effort part, they see effort as fruitless or worse. They don't want to be seen as a failure. And if you look at the criticism part, they ignore useful negative feedback. They look at it as a bruise of their ego, or they cower within because of the fear of being a failure or being seen as a failure. Now, when it comes to the success area, those with fixed mindsets, they feel threatened by the success of others because it causes them to go within and to not see themselves as being the best. And so as a result, they may plateau earlier. They may not achieve as much as they could. They don't reach their full potential because of that fixed mindset. And all this, again, is confirmed through the deterministic view of the world that they have within. Now, if you look at the growth mindset, again, I mentioned this in this previous slide, people with growth mindset embrace challenges. They persist in the face of setbacks. They see setbacks as an opportunity to do better, to learn more, and to prove that this is a great opportunity to expand myself, to be stretched. And they see, again, this is a path to mastery. I want to master this particular subject. And once I do, I want to go to the next subject. And they're innovative, they're creative, and they actually crave constructive criticism. They see it as an opportunity to be poured into and to take that information and do better whatever is in front of them. And lastly, they find lessons and inspiration from the success of others. They have mentors, they have coaches, they have people who support them, and they have role models that they look up to and say, I'm going to do this because if they can do it, I know I can. And as a result, they reach higher levels of accomplishments, and they gives them the greater sense of free will. And I'm going to give another quote, and it says, I don't divide the world into the weak and the strong, or the success and the failures. I divide the world into the learners and the non-learners. And this is from Benjamin Barber, a political theorist. Now, there are strategies that corporate leaders can take to create an environment of growth. And the first one is to be the example, embodying the principles of growth and educating yourself. Set a precedent for your team. When you do this, you give them permission to also learn, to also grow, and to check out new subjects that could be very helpful for them, helpful for the organization, and inspire those around them to also want to lead by example. Encourage innovation and calculated risk-taking. By fostering an environment of trust and openness, executives inspire their teams to explore new ideas and pursue creative solutions without the fear of failure. And lastly, promote continuous learning and adaptability. Implementing educational initiatives like workshops, mentorships, and online courses enhances skills and fosters an innovative, adaptable culture. I want to share with you an example of this. It was during my time in the mayor's office where I was charged to do many things and lead citywide initiatives. And during the end of my tenure and also the end of Mayor Pete's tenure, I was charged with putting together a town hall. And at that time, we as a community experienced 3 officer-involved shootings in a short period of time. And it was a Friday late afternoon evening where we walked with the community from the South Bend Police Department to the county city building. And the community was deeply sad and hurt, frustrated, wanted to have their voices heard. And Mayor Pete was able to speak through the megaphone to share with them that their voice will be heard. And he said that on Sunday, we will have a town hall that will allow everyone to learn more and to air their grievances. And at that time, there was no town hall scheduled. I was very interested to learn how this was all going to unfold. And as we walked into the county city building together, I had 2 interns with me, Ben and Paul, and we were in the elevator with Mayor Pete, and I asked him, how are we going to do this? We have less than 48 hours. And he turned and said to me, I trust you and I believe in you. This is a part of the encouraged innovation and calculated risk taking. Now, honestly, when he said that, my mind was going 1,000 miles per minute because I was thinking, how are we going to pull this off in less than 48 hours? And I had a very small team, Paul and Ben, and he said, you can do this. And so I charged the interns to meet me at the county city building the next day at 7 a.m. And what we were able to do together is to put together a town hall that allowed individuals to share their grievances and to get their voices heard. And a part of that process was for me to dive deep into what Jim Collins, I'm gonna pull the book out here, called Great by Choice, talks about, and it's called Empirical Creativity. And I'm gonna read to you what he says about empirical creativity. And he says, social psychology research indicates that at a time of uncertainty, most people look to other people, authority figures, peers, groups, norms, for their primary cues about how to proceed. 10Xers, in contrast, do not look to conventional wisdom to set their course during times of uncertainty, nor do they primarily look to what other people do or to what pundits and experts say they should do. They look primarily to empirical evidence. The empirical evidence that I had at that time was a year's worth of conversation that I, in partnership with Dr. David Hooker with the University of Notre Dame, was able to put together what was conversations between the South Bend Police Department and community leaders and individuals who are part of the disenfranchised communities to talk about storytelling. What are the stories that we are hearing within our communities? What are the things that are causing us heartbreak? And how can we work together in the event that something like this was to rise to the surface? And because of that information that I was able to glean, and to take that empirical data, the quantitative data, to find the themes, to figure out what are some of the questions that our host should ask, our moderator should ask, and what are some things that the police department should be mindful of when responding to the community. And with that encouragement and calculating the risks that would be involved, because it was a very risky thing to do, but having that information and that support and the team that I had, the small but mighty team, we were able to think outside the box and to do what was needed to serve the community, not only at that time, but also to design community conversations that took place afterwards. So oftentimes, if not most times, it's up to the corporate leaders to create an environment that encourages outside the box thinking. It encourages risk taking with information, proper information in mind, so that way you can know what the opportunity costs are, but also the gain when taking those risks. Some strategies for managers: you have to empower your team. And what that looks like is providing constructive feedback. Managers with the growth mindset cultivate an empowering and positive atmosphere by offering their teams constructive feedback, which plays a crucial role in fostering development and driving success. One thing that Brene Brown says, the worst thing that a manager can do is to be unclear. To be unclear is to be unkind. So as a manager, you are empowered to part information and constructive feedback so that way your team can grow. Not only will it build confidence within within your team, but it will build a culture of growth, innovation, and resilience within the organization. Another thing that a manager can do is provide resources for professional development. It says growth mindset managers empower their teams by offering a wealth of resources for professional development, fostering an environment of continuous learning so that their team can reach their full potential. And lastly, recognize and reward effort. By valuing the process of learning, leaders can cultivate resilience and perseverance among team members, which are essential traits for adapting to new challenges and overcoming setbacks. As I mentioned in the start of this presentation, Dr. Dwick, she talks about focusing more on the processes, how they got to the outcome, rewarding that so that way they can be encouraged to start thinking outside the box, taking risk, problem solving in a way that really creates new ideas. And so what I found very interesting in doing this research is that there were so many examples of this happening within organizations that we know. As I mentioned before, Jim Collins, the author of I'm Choosing to Be Great, talks about these 10Xers, which are organizations that he has measured and understood how they became successful during challenging times. And they're called 10Xers because they were able to perform 10 times the industry index in their area by taking these calculated and calculated risk to be successful and to outlast whatever came before them. So the book that I read that I thought was very fascinating that gives these examples is this one, and I encourage you all to read it. It's called the Greatest Business Decisions of All Times. And this book gave so many examples of how leaders within their organizations created an environment of innovation, an environment of creative thinking, and providing constructive feedback and more. And so I'm going to start with Bill Gates. What I found very fascinating is that what he used to do when he was in his position, he used to create what was called Think Week. And what he would do is he would step away from his office, go to a secluded area, and just take a whole week to look at ideas that his team had that they wanted to present for him to think about. So not only was he able to look at their ideas, he was able to provide constructive feedback. And many of his employees thought that it was the coolest suggestion box ever. It inspired them and encouraged them to think outside the box and to present their ideas, their innovative ideas to him, hoping that it could be something that may be useful to Microsoft. The next example is Jack Welch from General Electric. At the time that he became CEO, which was in the 80s, maybe mid 80s, early 90s, he had made a lot of transformational decisions. And one of them was to take Crotonville, which was this learning institution, and transform it in a way that encouraged innovative thinking. When he became CEO, Crotonville was not this learning institute that was attractive. It was in this reclusive area. The bathrooms looked like dormitory bathrooms. And so at the time, General Electric had a bunch of layoffs, and he went before the board and said, I want to invest in my team. And so they spent millions of dollars creating this innovative center, but also partnering with industry leaders so that way they can educate his team. And what came from that was what they called in-house consultants. Their team became in-house consultants because they were taught by the industry leaders, but also they were able to apply those in their daily activities at work. And lastly, 3M's 15% rule, which is often called the most famous corporate policy of all time. 3M was they have a very interesting story. Once they started, they got into an industry that the founders had no real strong knowledge on, but they continued to reinvent themselves and went into another industry when that last industry knowledge didn't really come to par and they weren't able to be successful. So they already created a culture of innovation, stepping outside the box, coloring outside the lines. And so that became ingrained within their culture. And so when they created this 15% rule, they empowered their team to dedicate 15% of their time to problem solve, think of something that was personal to them that they wanted to troubleshoot that would help them do their work to the next level, take their work to the next level. And one of the greatest inventions that I am glad that this 15% rule came into play is the Post-it note. So the Post-it note was something that came about because an engineer, a scientist, was struggling with keeping notes all together and wanted to keep them in one central location. And so it took a couple of engineers to work together to really find out what is that thing that can help them. And what came to be was the Post-it note. Employee resilience, developing resilience and confidence. This is for the employee in mind. So there are 6 domains of resilience, and I'm going to talk about 3 of those. And the first one is self-reflection and self-awareness. Employees with a growth mindset actively engage in self-reflection and exhibit heightened self-awareness, demonstrating their proactive and adaptable nature in pursuing personal and professional development. This is a part of the composure domain. Composure is ingrained in emotional intelligence. When you're able to self-reflect and understand what emotions come about and why they're present and why they're in your ear, it's going to be profound in the decisions that you make and how you attack a problem. So when you keep bumping against something that's challenging and you want to give up, ask yourself why. What is a narrative that is being fed to you, that is on repeat in your internal soundtrack that is getting in your way? And what do you need to do differently, right, to change that soundtrack that plays over and over again? Next one is cultivate a supportive network. And it says employees with a growth mindset actively engage in building and nurturing a robust and supportive network that extends both within their organizations and beyond. The domain under resilience, which would be, the collaboration domain, which talks about the value of working within your colleagues, but also finding mentors, coaches, advisors, cheerleaders outside of your job that can encourage you, that can motivate you, and that can provide some words of wisdom, show you where the landmines are so that way you won't walk within your profession with an amputee. And this is being figuratively here. But it's really important to create a supportive network because you can bounce ideas, and there's nothing more engaging and exciting about that. The next one is embrace stress management techniques. It says employees with a growth mindset are not only open to learning new skills and improving their capabilities, but they seek out and implement various stress management techniques to enhance their well-being and performance. This is huge. This is under the health domain, and you have to have some parameters in place to ensure that you don't walk into the path of burnout. Burnout is very real. And when you're able to listen into your internal clock, you know when to press snooze. You know when it's time to step back and relax. And that's especially for my introverts. As a self-proclaimed introvert, you have to have these healthy boundaries in place. So that way you know when to get back in the game and when to step back and decompress, right? And that's important to know when to pour your cup and when to fill your cup. This is going to be very helpful to keep you in the game so that way you can attack whatever comes before you, because we are in an ever-changing landscape here where what was new and exciting today is going to be old tomorrow. So it's going to be important for you to prioritize your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health so that way you can be innovative, you can be resilient, and you can think outside the box and thrive within your profession. I want to pause here and ask if there are any questions, because I know I went through a lot of information. Mark, are there any questions in the chat? I think there are none. I don't hear him. All right, so I will continue. So overcoming common barriers. This is for the individual in mind. There are barriers that are at play at the organizational level when it comes to implementing new initiatives that encourage the growth mindsets, but I want to focus my time on the barriers that often present themselves when you are working to go from a fixed to a growth mindset. And the first one is resistance to change. Change is very challenging to a lot of people. I understand. I've been through that. I'm going through that. I'm growing through that. It is very possible to overcome it. And so there are some ways that you can do that. Setting clear goals. When you are about to embark upon something new, if it's too big for you, take it into smaller bite size, right? What do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Be very clear on your goals, the who, what, when, where, and how. Don't be broad in them saying, I'm going to write this report next week, when next week, what time next week, where next week, right? Hold yourself accountable. And going back to collaboration, if you can find an accountability partner, that's even better. So that way you two can encourage one another as you're working to become more, operate more in the growth mindset. Acknowledge the resistance. Understand why this resistance is coming about. Is it because you're feeling bombarded by an old thought that you had about yourself, that you're not enough? And when I work with my clients, when that comes up, I ask them, who told you that? Who wrote that script for you? Let's go back into your receipts. And some of those receipts may look like your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your awards that you received. And look at those things. That's your mirror. That's your professional mirror. So whenever that resistance comes up, ask yourself, why are you here? And then counteract that with the receipts that you have. Cultivate self-awareness. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about going back to your professional resume, going back to your LinkedIn or whatever that you have that keeps the receipts of who you are. There's nothing more powerful than being self-aware. Self-awareness is one of the 4 quadrants within emotional intelligence. When you're able to master that, you're able to go into social awareness with ease, self-management with ease, and relationship management with ease. Celebrate progress. I am a huge fan of celebrating progress. I'm always giving myself high fives, and it looks just like you give yourself a round of applause. I'm always giving myself that because if I can't start at home, how can I expect others to do the same? So take your time to celebrate the small wins because they build up to be something bigger. Just like a big screen television, you have these small pixels that work together to put together this beautiful picture that you can enjoy. So don't forget to take the time to celebrate the wins. Practice flexibility. So I tell my clients this who are known for being perfectionists. Don't seek perfection, seek growth. Be flexible during this process. Be open to think outside the box. Be open to color outside the lines. A lot of great ideas came from flexibility. But in this, also be kind to yourself, right? We can be our worst critic. And that's why I had started off with the quote, if you can conquer the enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. When you're able to practice flexibility and kindness, you can be very kind to yourself, right? And conquer that voice that used to keep you down. Use that voice to lift you up. Seek support and feedback. I mentioned again of the 6 domains of resilience, one of them is collaboration. Find that accountability partner, find that coach, find that mentor, find that expert. That is going to be huge in your success. That's going to be an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself through a different set of eyes, a trusted set of eyes, right? You want to be very intentional, but also very wise when picking those to be your unofficial advisory committee. The other barrier that tends to come up a lot when people are going from fixed to growth mindset is the fear of failure. And I mentioned before Wayne Dyer's quote, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. If you look at your past failures as opportunity for growth, it's going to be a game changer for you. You will be able to see that what do I need to learn more about myself? What do I need to learn more about this process? Look at it as a healthy form of competition, you against that thing, right? There's nothing more exciting about that. It reminds me of golf, right? Golf is a one man's game or one woman's game, and it's about competing against yourself, right? So look at your past failures as an opportunity for engaging in healthy competition with yourself. And embrace it as a normal part of growth. This is a part of the growing process, right? Failure is an opportunity for you to grow, to be stretched in a way that not only will benefit you professionally, but also personally as well. The skills that you will gain from this newfound knowledge is going to be helpful for you in your personal relationships. As I mentioned before, practice self-compassion. Please, please, please be kind in this work. right? You have to be your biggest fan. You have to be your biggest cheerleader in this. Don't seek perfection, because if you seek out perfection, you're going to fail every time, and you're going to fall into what is known as confirmation bias. And you don't want to keep confirming the false belief about yourself, and that is that you're not enough or you're a failure. You are not a failure. You're learning, you're growing. You have an opportunity to be the best version of yourself, not just for your employment, your job, but also for those that are around you. And again, as I mentioned before, same as resistance to change is seeking support from mentors or peers, and visualize success. Focus on the positive outcomes. I'm all about visualizing success. I have a vision board that's electronic. Pinterest is a great app for that. But also, I like to sketch and doodle stickers and all that good stuff to say, this is what my life will look like if I continue on this path, or when I continue on this path. So these are the two common barriers that tend to come up with one is trying to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And all in all, make sure you are very kind to yourself as you're growing through this transition. So in conclusion, the summary here is encourage an organizational culture focused on continuous learning and development. This something has to come from the top. Be the example, encourage this as a CEO, as an executive, as a manager. You have to be the commander in culture, right? Command that the culture be of one of that embraces risk taking, that embraces innovative ideas, that embraces thinking outside the box and being innovative. And one thing that I learned, if I may add this here, is when I was working at ADEC, that was when the pandemic hit. We had to think outside the box, and we had support to be able to do so from the top to say we have to do things differently. And we've all learned, many of us learned, excuse me, that if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be innovative. You have to think outside the box. And unfortunately, we saw many businesses that did not do that well, and they're not here because they weren't able to have the very open, innovative growth mindset approach and thinking outside the box. The next one is foster an environment where innovation, adaptability are priorities. Again, we talked about this when I mentioned Bill Gates, when I mentioned Jack Welch, and others who created innovation as the focal point within their organization. Focusing on actionable items, insights that help individuals improve and thrive. This is where the constructive feedback come into play. Acknowledge what they're doing well, but also acknowledge opportunities for growth, right? You want to make sure that they know where they need to improve on, right? You want to give it to them in a way that doesn't break their spirit, but encourage that spirit of innovative thinking. Use challenge as an opportunity for skill enhancement and personal and professional development. Again, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And lastly, most importantly, please be kind to yourself as you're going from fixed to growth mindset. I see you on the peripheral, Mark. Was there a question?
Nope, I just came in to just,
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So again, as I mentioned, be kind to yourself through this process. We can be our harshest critic, and when you're able to conquer the enemy within, the enemy without, whether that is challenges, adversity, negative thoughts, not excuse me, negative talk from those outside of you, can do you no harm. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this morning and sharing with you ways on how to be resilient and thrive during challenging times. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Cherri. Just really inspirational. And if, again, you want to hear more from Cherri, we did a great, terrific podcast that you can find where all of you, wherever you get your podcast from. It's called Behind the Region. And you can hear more from Cherri, and she just really inspirational. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for all that you do. I don't think I see any questions. So you were absolutely perfect, as always. And yeah, thank you so much. SBRchamber.com is our website. You can get all of the event information there, and there is Cherri's information. So for more information from Cherri, and if you want to get a hold of her, that's how you do it. And she's just, as you heard, for the last 45 minutes, pretty incredible. So we are lucky to have you. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for your support of the chamber. I hope you have a terrific rest of your dreary, gloomy day and a good weekend. We hope to see you next week at our State of the Economy breakfast. So thank you again so much. Take care.